Listen, I think about Eminem more than I care to admit. He's clearly one of the most important rappers of all time, and yet he is struggling to connect with a younger audience. Eminem has a new album out. Today on the podcast, the group chat will look at M's legacy and this moment for Eminem. I'm Elamin Abdul Mahmoud. This is Commotion. Okay, look, Eminem dropped a new album this past Friday. It's called The Death of Slim Shady Coup de Grace. Let's start here.
Well, look what the stork brung. Little baby devil with the forked tongue. And it's sticking out, yeah, like a sore thumb. With a forehead that it grew horns from. Still a white jerk. Pulling up in a Chrysler to the cipher with the Fikes perks and a Bud Light shirt. Lyrical technician, an electrician, y'all light work. And I don't got a paper to.
An electrician, y'all light work. I mean, they're groaners, man. You're going to get groaners from Eminem at this point, but that's fine. That song is called Houdini. That's a lead single off M's latest album. The album seems to be signaling an end of Eminem's alter ego, Slim Shady. That's, I think, worth talking about because, that's the alter ego. That is the big reason for why M has been one of the most controversial and polarizing pop acts of our time, while also being considered by a lot of people to be just, one of the greatest MCs of our time. We thought, this kind of felt like the right moment to take a look at Eminem's legacy and this moment at Eminem. D-Sisive is here, Ian Kamau is here, and Maura Johnston is here. They've got a lot of thoughts on Eminem. They're with me now. D-Sisive, Kamau, Maura, what's up, y'all? How's it going?
Hello.
Good. How are you?
Oh my God, I'm ready. I'm ready for this conversation. Okay, we got a lot of ground to cover, so let's maybe start with you, D-Sisive. Maybe let's situate us in what it feels like to arrive at a moment when Eminem is first coming out. So when did you first encounter Eminem?
I can still vividly remember the moment. It was, I guess, 1997. I'm in a car. I'm going to do a show with a group I was a member of called Cryptic Souls Crew. And it was the first time I heard the Slim Shady EP. A friend of mine at the time played it in the tape deck. That's how long ago it was. And
yeah,
when it was the song Low Down and Dirty. And the minute I heard, the reworking of the Red Man lyric, if you hear a rapper that sounds like me, smack him, I was like, that was it. It felt like a cinematic moment. Everything, all the car banter went silent, and I was just locked in on this music, and my life was changed forever.
there is an electricity to early Eminem that feels a little bit like that. Okay, like the idea of this guy arriving out of nowhere and just like taking all the energy of hip hop at the time and kind of focusing on a single person. Look, Maura, the Beastie Boys were around, Vanilla Ice, Marky Mark, Everlast, Kid Rock. A lot of white rappers were doing the thing at a time, to varying degrees, I would say, of success. And then also, I'd say also varying degrees of hip hop credibility, we should mention. What in your mind makes someone like Eminem different when he arrived?
Well, I think the credibility is a big part of it, right? I mean, the cosign from Dr. Dre, you couldn't get bigger than that. The fact that also his lyrics went to extremes kind of got him attention in like a PMRC style, like, oh my gosh, pearl clutching, etc.
Yeah.
And timing was really important because, he had his big mainstream breakthrough in 1999, which was the same year as Woodstock 99, which was rap metal all over the place. And I feel like because even though his beats were more in the hip hop idiom than the rock idiom, he was able to float between hip hop and rock in a way that non-white artists weren't, because rock radio from, the late 70s on was very much racially gatekept.
Kamau, my dude, like the thing that I struggle with the most about that early period of Eminem is the respectability or the way that people sort of talked about Eminem. Specifically, they were like, finally, a poet among the rappers. And of course, like there were so many poets among the rappers before Eminem arrived. And so I think about that period of time and all like the sort of like the hailing of the arrival of a new messiah in an art form. That's the stuff that I remember. What do you remember about sort of, when Eminem was first arriving? What do you think?
So I wasn't in the place where I would hear that kind of thing because we were like inside of the hip hop culture, and anyone that was saying that felt like they were outside of it.
Yeah.
It was clear we understood like what was going on like inside of the hip hop culture, and Eminem was very clearly inside of the hip hop culture, but doing something that was quite different than what other people were doing because their experience was very different.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought when he came out, I was like, I felt very similar to Derek. It's like, this is something that is quite different. And also he's cueing everything that has to do with an understanding of what it is to be an MC and an understanding of hip hop culture.
Yeah. First of all, we got to decide whether we're going to call Derek or we're going to call Derek Decisive, because I can't say Decisive and then you say Derek. It sounds like we're talking about two different people, but that's we're sticking with Decisive. We're doing it.
Call me Derek. Decisive's my father's name.
All right, Derek it is. Okay, I think if there's one thing that Eminem was able to do from jump, it's like this thing where he gets everyone's attention, whether it was with songs like My Name Is or The Real Slim Shady or Without Me. These performances at award shows that were always quite memorable, and then of course there's the movie that gave us this.
Look, if you had one shot or one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it or just let it slip? Yo. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks...
That song won an Oscar. That is Lose Yourself by Eminem from his semi-autobiographical movie 8 Mile. Derek, I want to talk about the importance of this song because it was a moment, and I was reminded of how big a moment it was because I saw Jelly Roll in concert last week, and Jelly Roll includes this song as a part of his set. Jelly Roll is a sort of country singer / rapper, and he performs this song as part of his set, and the crowd begins to sing it like it's a modern day Sweet Caroline. Like that's how dominant Lose Yourself is in the sort of imagination of people who are like roughly my age. So do you want to talk about how big of a moment Lose Yourself was?
Lose Yourself was massive. It was, I think what made Eminem magical in that sense was he was bringing, like being a part of the underground scene, the underground backpack culture. We were never really recognized. We were always below sea level, but he brought that world to the mainstream. And we're hearing songs on mainstream radio about like the songs about battle rap. Like, sure, you can interpret it any way you want, but it's specifically written about battling. And where it connected with me was that was my life because I started as a rapper, as a battle rapper in 96, 97.
Yeah.
So the details, how specific he got into it, and then to see that embraced by the mainstream, it was just insane. Now, I don't want to seem like the ultimate, like he could do no wrong. I have to put out there, I never really liked that guitar riff. I gotta make it be known. I was never a fan of the guitar riff. You heard it here first. I'm sorry, folks.
Out of all the things that are problems with Eminem's career, I did not expect the guitar riff to be one of the first things to come up first. And we will get to those. We will get to those. But what I'm trying to do is sort of establish the dominance of Eminem. Maybe more you want to weigh in on the idea of like what solidified him for you as one of the pop stars of that moment. What's the thing that made him stand out?
I mean, I feel like it goes back to even like the fact that the video for My Name Is, his debut mainstream single, premiered on TRL, which was at the time like the biggest pop countdown. Like it was, the MTV equivalent of American Top 40. It was like where people would go for their new pop moments.
Yeah. And
I feel like that just explicitly like put him in the pop realm right there amongst your Britney Spearses and your Limp Bizkits and et cetera. And then I also think his influence was really kind of crystallized and made apparent at the beginning of the VMAs, the Video Music Awards, when an army of Eminems invaded Radio City Music Hall as he performed The Real Slim Shady. And it showed just like, how, I mean, you could probably, have found hundreds or thousands of more in the New York metropolitan area to populate that group.
You just said TRL, and I just wanted to say for the young people listening, back in the day.
Yeah, no, I know. I always have to do this when I'm teaching too.
Kids, Google Carson Daly. We can talk about it later. Okay, I want to take a moment to talk about this song right here.
See, everything you say is real, and I respect you cause you tell it. My girlfriend's jealous cause I talk about you 24/7. But she don't know you like I know you, Slim. No one does. She don't know what it was like for people like us growing up. You gotta call me, man. I'll be the biggest fan you'll ever lose. Sincerely yours, Stan. P.S. We should be together too.
That's a bit of Stan from Eminem. Derek, I feel like there's something about the song and the size of the song. It also gave us the word stan, which, like, we talk about stan culture, which is like just like when fans are a little too intense. It started with this song. It started with this song that is a song about Eminem talking and thinking through a relationship with a fan. What are your thoughts on the significance of Stan in the sort of Eminem, discography?
Stan makes me like the idea of Stan or the song. It reminds me of a Nas line. No ideas, original, nothing new under the sun. But like in a way, Eminem kind of debunked that. He wrote a song like this had never been done, and especially to get so specific into the mind of a fan, and especially being so self-aware of the way people are looking at him. And, to kind of go back to my last answer about Lose Yourself, hearing myself in the song, I also heard elements of myself in Stan as well, because I was the Stan. Not quite, I stop about halfway through. I stopped at trying to write a letter. But that song it brought me back to being at Warped Tour, being 20 feet away from the guy. But I felt a connection. I can embrace it now as a 44-year-old man, but back then you just, I don't know, there was a power to him, and but he nailed it. That's what also made Stan beautiful.
I think like the importance of Stan to me is exactly the thing that you said about introducing a new idea and a new framework to the culture, because Stan is a cautionary tale. Like, Stan is not like, oh, I want to be the Stan of this artist. It's like, no, that's not good, because spoiler alert, if I can spoil, a 22-year-old song at this point, but Stan dies at the end of that song, and Eminem sort of reflecting on the death of Stan. So Eminem has been doing this thing, Ian, that is so comprehensive. He doesn't sort of create songs that are just about ideas. He creates these worlds in these songs, especially Eminem at that moment. I don't think you need, to be an Eminem fan to acknowledge how great a writer he is. What do you think it is about Eminem as an MC that makes him noteworthy?
I think one of the best examples is Stan. Stan is a movie in 4 acts. It has everything that you would need in a rapper, in terms of obviously flow, internal rhymes, metaphor, simile, etc., but also like master storytelling, a character arc, multiple characters that are playing out, like a turn and a twist at a certain point. Stan does things that like Stanley Kubrick movies do.
Yes.
And I think the reason why Stan was so impactful is because it was a movie.
Mm-hmm. If folks are just joining us, my name is Elamin Abdul-Mahmoud. This show is called Commotion, and we are talking about Eminem, who's one of our biggest, but also one of our most controversial pop stars of our time. And we haven't really talked about the controversy yet, Maura. We've sort of talked about the greatness. We haven't talked about the other stuff, and I think it's worth sort of pivoting and talking about that now. But yes, in light of the new album, but just in general. So we need to be talking about, we all agree that he's like this deeply skilled rapper. That is 100% true. But so much of the controversy around Eminem has been through the being provocative by being sexist, by being misogynist, by being homophobic, by being transphobic. Like, these are all instances and acts and windows and moments of Eminem's career. These are issues that like pop has been grappling with, rock has been grappling with, certainly rap has been grappling with for some time. But I'm curious about what you make about, Eminem's consistent and like relentless trolling. He's always wants to be the juvenile in the room sometimes, it feels. And he doesn't, no matter what, he just wants to go to the place where you tell him, don't do this, Eminem. And he's like, I'm going to do it. And there's so much of that in the new album.
Oppositional defiant disorder kind of stuff.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like, that's always been a kind of recipe for success in pop, though, is being, you know, provocative. Even if it's even if it's empty provocations, the attention is still there.
Yeah.
As far as like, I feel with his misogyny specifically, I feel like one of the big differences was, you know, I mean, he's a very intense performer. I think that, you know, when he's at his best, he's just like all in and like grabbing you by the shoulders and shaking you in musical form. And I feel like that intensity combined with like the sort of like almost horrorcore nature of some of his lyrics, combined with the fact that he named names, you know, everybody knew who Kim was, everybody knew who Haley was. And then also he would get personal with his mom. He, you know, he got personal with people like Mariah Carey and Christina Aguilera. And I feel like a lot of this new record is him trying to grapple with the fact, and Stan too, to an extent, is an attempt for that. He's grappling with the fact that like this public persona of him, how much of it is actually him? Like, has he been subsumed by it in a way? But I think that, you know, with misogyny, I mean, he's obviously like a lightning rod, and I feel like, you know, the bigger you get, the more you're going to be seen as controversial. But also with him, it's like he reveled in it because it got him more attention, and also, you know, it probably like riled up his base listeners in a way too.
Well, Derek, I'm interested in this because I think the thing that makes Eminem work, or in early Eminem work, is that as horrific as he is quite often, he also does the very good thing of pre-anticipating the objections to his lyrics, pre-anticipating the objections that people have to like the role that he plays in the culture. To me, that's a thing that has shifted Eminem. I don't think he's as good as at anticipating how he's going to be responded to, whereas like he was 2 steps ahead of you at all times in his Imperial era, from like 1999 to like maybe 2003, 2004 even, like into Encore. And I feel like he's lost a little bit of that a little bit. What do you make of his sort of continuous, relentless attempts to provoke, even if it sometimes kind of falls flat?
Well, I feel like the older I got and the more he evolved technically as an MC, you know, skills wise. It got incredible. But as far as the content, and even to touch specifically on the misogyny and the homophobia, when you're 16, 17 and you're hearing this for the first time, you know, you're dumb and it's funny and it's stupid funny, but you kind of get the joke. But like, I remember being at Anger Management Tour and, you know, watching the inflated doll being passed around the room, and you kind of see the room divided. Like I'd say the majority of people that got the joke, but there would be a minority of group that kind of took it for real. You know, like I would be afraid to be in a corner with them. You know, like it's just like, and I feel like that could have been something Eminem could have paid attention to more, or even to this day, because I don't know, there are people out there that just, I don't know. It's
like there are people. You're right. Like there are people who don't get that joke, Ian. I feel like to me, like I'm interested in the idea of who Eminem is speaking to, and I'm asking this genuinely because I heard this new record, and this guy Eminem to me is at near the top of his skill when it comes to rapping. He's doing internal rhymes at a pace I've heard very few rappers do. He's technically incredibly gifted. He's been doing his reps in, Ian. But there's also a gap between having the ability to say a lot of stuff and having something to say. He's as good as he can possibly get at the form. I'm not sure that the content is there right now, except these sort of attempts at provocations. What's your read on this moment in Eminem?
I agree. I haven't really actively listened to Eminem since around the point of Stan, and it's because of the content. And I agree, there's a difference between being able to recognize that someone is technically skilled or a very good writer and the ability to relate to what it is that they're saying. I think that Eminem from the beginning, when he was younger, was really making music for like teenage boys. And I think the Slim Shady moniker is still talking to that group, like you know, teenage boys. And so now Marshall Mathers is grappling with Slim Shady, this like devil on his shoulder, this like Jungian shadow thing,
Yep.
and trying to understand that this is also the thing that has made him like rich and famous.
Yeah.
Like the Slim Shady EP introduced this character to the world that has given him a life that he may not have got otherwise.
Yeah.
But also he has to grapple with the reality of that. And so I think, like a lot of famous people, he's kind of stuck in a bit of a bubble.
Yeah.
And he's not living a kind of life that is relatable to a lot of us. And so at the beginning it was fun, but now I'm 44 too. And I was 19 when I first heard him.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea of Eminem sort of trying to put to bed this Jungian shadow that you mentioned in this album, Maura, that's the concept of the new album. The concept of the new album is Marshall Mathers is going to battle, he's going to murder. I mean, he's like actually been kidnapped by Slim Shady, and they're going to sort of battle it out. Only one of them can survive. There is a lot of juvenilia around in this album, but also there's a lot of like, do I really need to be doing this? I'm 52 years old, on this album as well. So I listened to this album. There's a lot of musing that it might be the last Eminem album ever. What do you make of the way that Eminem's used this contrast between him and division between him and Slim Shady on this record?
I mean, I feel like it's one of those records that's very like, because it is this kind of like man versus himself tale.
Yeah.
It's very messy. It's very, it's dexterous. Honestly, I think it's kind of brave of him to put out a record that needs to be listened to in full in the streaming era, just because like that doesn't happen.
No.
I do think it's interesting that he talks a lot about his struggles with addiction. And I feel like, you mentioned Jelly Roll earlier, and he's sampled on the last song.
Yes.
And Jelly Roll is huge right now, an Eminem fan, obviously, as you pointed out.
Yeah.
And I feel like, he's somebody who has had a lot of hits talking specifically about addiction, which is something that I think, Eminem talked around a lot. And so it's like kind of like almost he ends the record with a Jelly Roll singing.
Yeah.
And it's like, is it him like figuring out that he's kind of like created the conditions where he could eventually grow up on record?
Right.
It's something worth thinking about,
It is. Even if it's not necessarily successful, it feels like it's a
Right.
necessary album for him to make at this point. And I think if there's anything that Eminem can be relied to do, it's he's going to do the thing that works for him. For example, he sort of keeps regularly returning to this motif of writing songs as suicide notes. There's something about that process that he does that seems therapeutic to him. I listen to this album and go, oh, this album is for Eminem. Like, I'm not meant to necessarily listen to this. He just needed to put this out. Derek, I'm going to give maybe last word to you on this. If this does turn out to be the last Eminem album, where would he land on your GOAT list?
I try not to have like a numerical like ranking as far as my GOAT list.
Sorry, pal.
I feel like it but he's always been, if I were to have one, he's up there with, the regulars, Jay, Nas, Doom, Sean Price, like my guys. But like, I feel like he hit a point where he solidified it for me. He made the impact. He's done what no other rapper could do. But even though I'm still going to tune in, but I'm not always going to be a fan of it.
That's fair.
Yeah, I can't turn my back on the guy. Can't do it.
I like that. I like that idea of not being able to turn your back on the guy. Okay, Ian, I got maybe 30 seconds left. Do you want to take us home? Because you were talking your talk earlier about the idea of ranking Eminem and where he would fall in the GOAT list. So please.
He's probably in my top 10. I don't think he's in my top 5. I
Okay.
think a lot of that is about the same thing I said before. I think the ability to I relate more to like Andre 3000, Black Thought, Pac. Like, I think the ability to relate is above the skill level. But if it was just like a top 5 for skill, I would say he's top 5 for skill. But I don't necessarily think that he would be like top 5 for me. He's up there though.
That is true. And I think like there's something to be said about the fact that, Eminem at this point has proven everything he needs to prove about skill. It's about finding that other gear of returning to how do you connect with people again. I don't know if he's going to find that gear at any point soon, but he certainly seems to be trying. I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate this conversation. Ian and Derek and Maura, thank you so much for your time, you guys. This has been really great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Ian Kamau is an artist and culture critic based in Toronto. Derek /Decisive is a Juno and Polaris Prize nominated artist. He's also based in Toronto. And Maura Johnston is a freelance music journalist based out of Boston. If you must, you should go listen to that new Eminem album. It's called The Death of Slim Shady, Coup de Grace, and it is out right now. That is it for the podcast today. My name is Elamin Abdul Mahmoud. Hey, if you have a moment, would you go to our Instagram and follow us? We are at Commotion CBC. We'll be back tomorrow, and I will see you then.